You're listening to NTParanormal After Dark. Nothing normal about it.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Decided to just kind of do an interim podcast. I know I got a poll up on our board about whether or not I should talk about Bigfoot or if I should talk about stone tape theory, and I'm letting those polls kind of run because that was what I was planning for the next official podcast to be. But I was, since I kind of made the decision that I was going to start doing these 1 hour live streams as part of our official podcast, I wanted to combine them both into the same thing. I decided to kind of rework the intro and kind of retool some things in the studio for me to stream. So I kind of wanted to try it out, experiment a little bit, and see how it actually worked with Facebook and YouTube and all that good stuff. So I decided I would just talk about something that I'm real familiar on the subject, and I could fill out an hour, and you guys could ask questions and stuff like that. One of the cool things I want to try out is to be able to do like picture in a picture and show videos and pictures as I'm doing a podcast, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the other purpose of this. But so the topic I kind of decided to use as my demo or whatever. We get asked all the time at conventions, online boards, things like that, about our first experiences. Because I always, like the last live stream I had, I was actually talking about how a lot of people get into ghost hunting or paranormal investigation because they had some kind of experience that drew them in or got them curious or whatever. And I get asked about mine a lot. I haven't streamed about it a whole lot because we wrote a book, and it's actually one of the chapters in the book. We each have a chapter in the book about our experiences that got us into it. But I get asked about it so much, I figured, I'd kind of talk about it with you guys and let you guys ask questions or maybe pick my story apart even. I'm totally open to that idea too. And, we started doing, like, that experience happened to me in 2013 initially, and then we started doing investigations after that. And we went to other places, and I tried doing some stuff on my own at that location, the Lancaster warehouse. It wasn't until a while later that I actually put it together as like an official video, because we weren't like a research group yet. We were just kind of screwing around. Like we were videotaping stuff like on our phones, and we had a handheld camera and things like that. But we never thought to actually put it together like an episode, like a TV episode. We didn't think that was something we would ever be able to do. So like the quality of the videos that we put together in the beginning were really I don't want to say crappy. I mean, they were good for the tools I had at the time and the knowledge I had at the time. I'm still proud of that work that we did, and it was very honest work, but we made mistakes. Like the video quality wasn't always real great. We weren't always doing the proper controls, things like that. And I got information wrong a lot. Back in those days, I wasn't real comfortable like voice narrating for the videos. Like I felt kind of silly doing it. After a while, I got more used to it, and the quality of our episodes got up. But there's like a lot of text in a bunch of the videos, and some of the information is wrong because by the time we got around to doing those videos, we had forgot a lot of the information. Like I said, my experience happened in 2013, but I think if you actually look up the video online that we did, I think it says 2015, and I think there's some incorrect addresses. There's inconsistencies, and that just comes from inexperience. That's stuff you learn over time. We got into podcasting, our first 3 podcasts, even though the material's good, the subject's good, but the quality of it's just kind of blah. So what I want to do is kind of, since I haven't really talked about that particular event, I wanted to kind of go back, talk about it. actually bring up some of the video in this podcast and kind of, revisit it and clear up some of the inconsistencies that are in the video, because what I wrote about in the book was really accurate. Like I went back, I checked all my stuff, all the dates, everything is correct in there. And then you go back and you look at this old video we did, and it's like, man, what are they talking about? And that's just kind of how it is. So I don't know how many of you guys have read the book. Or seen the original video, or come and talk to me at one of our events. But my initial paranormal experience that got me into wanting to look further into paranormal investigating was actually a event that happened to me while I was on the job at work. And that's why that chapter of the book's called On the Job Training. Okay, so this was back in 2013, and what you have to know is, prior to this event, like, I was interested in paranormal activity, unexplained things, history, science, things like that. These have always been a big part of my life. Like, I love horror movies, I love sci-fi. I liked ghost adventures, things like that. Like, I was always kind of tuned in to that sort of culture, but I had never had an experience of my own. It was never something I really ever considered was something that could happen. It wasn't that I totally disbelieved. It's just that up to that point, nothing had ever happened to me that ever raised my interest enough to think, maybe I want to prove that, right? So I'm a very logical thinker. I'm an engineer. I tinker with computers. I do computer programming, graphics, science, anything like that. Like, I'm completely zoned in on that. So when I had my first experience, and it was something that I really just absolutely could not explain with logic, my initial reaction was not to say, okay, ghosts are a thing now. Like, that was never really well, maybe for about 10 minutes, but that was never really part of my vocabulary. My thought process was, I have to get to the bottom of this. I have to figure out what makes this tick. If spirits, ghosts, paranormal, the supernatural is a thing, that's fine. I can live with that. Like, science and, unexplained things, they can coexist together, but there's going to be some kind of symbiosis between the two of them, and I want to understand what that connection is. I want to understand the connection. I really don't care if there's ghosts or spirits or demons or Bigfoot or any of those things. It's almost beside the point. I want to understand the mechanics of reality that are currently not understandable, and that's where the cool science is at. Like, testing milk culture, biological engineering, and testing milk cultures at a dairy plant. That's like boring science. That's stuff that we've already looked at. We already understand. You always want to take the step further. I'm like into time travel, ancient aliens, Bigfoot, all that. But I'm from the science aspect of it, and so that's kind of the thought process that I was in. But my first experience came almost totally as a surprise to me, which I think I was 2013. I think I would have been 30 at the time, and no, I would have been 32. Sorry. So from the ground up, here's basically the story, is that the company I work for, that I do data analysis and inventory management, and I actually wear a bunch of different hats, but it involves me to go into the warehouse a lot and look at inventory and calculate inventory numbers, things like that. I know that's totally boring compared to me doing paranormal investigation, but it's part of that analytical side of me. But the company I work for had a huge excess in overstock inventory. Basically, they bought too much in inventory, and the customer didn't get enough. So it was getting around. It was around December. It was a little before December when they got the warehouse, but we were ramping up towards end of the year annual inventory, and they had to rent a warehouse to put the excess inventory in so that we could organize enough to do the actual counts for the annual for the bank and things like that, right? So this actually starts like a few months beforehand, right? Because we were ramping up in the last quarter, and so they get the warehouse and they slam a whole bunch of product in there, and the whole place is full. It's all floor loaded, and it's super cheap because it's only got one shipping dock on it, and half the lights in it don't work, and it's arranged real weird. It's kind of separated out into 3 rooms, and then there's like some office area that we're really not using. We just need the storage space, right? And so they spend about 2 weeks slamming all this product in there, and they don't want to spend the money on manning the warehouse because it's all overstocked. We use a little bit of it, but not a lot of it. So basically what they do is it's an unmanned warehouse, and by that I mean somebody from another shop that kind of lives on the it's in between somebody's commute to their normal day job at our work, and it was his responsibility to open the warehouse up in the morning, close it up at night, and then typically if something needed to be taken out of there, a driver would show up, and he would just pop over there real quick because it was only like 10 minutes away from our main location where that guy worked, and he would just load the truck, leave or whatever, and then before he went home that night, he would lock up because it was on the way home. So we have this warehouse for a few months, and some rumors kind of circulate in the company that the guy that's doing this he doesn't want to do it anymore. He doesn't like going there in the morning because the place creeps him out. When the lights aren't on, he gets a little freaked out. And so it got to the point where he was like running across the warehouse, flipping on the light, running back out. And after a while, he refused to go back. And it was a little while before I actually heard the stories about what was going on there. And apparently, on more than one occasion while he was in there, he would hear somebody else walking around. He would hear somebody humming, talking to him, things like that. And that wigged him out, especially with half the lights not working, right? And then the other thing that was going on that they were talking about was there was this really creepy door in the back that went to like this storage room that nobody wanted to go into because there were no lights in there, and it wasn't big enough to do anything with, but no one liked it. Everybody got a bad feeling about it. But the really creepy part is they couldn't keep the door closed. The hinge was bad. It wouldn't lock, so it would swing open on its own. Well, that's not really inherently weird. But the weird part is Vince, the guy that was going to the warehouse, he would put a chair in front of the door. He would come in the next day, door would be wide open. He's like, okay, well maybe the wind was strong enough to blow it open somehow, because it wasn't a perfectly sealed room. And so the next day he puts something heavier in front of it, and he would come in the next day and said the door was open. So this went on for like a little while, and the last, and at one point he actually refused to go back to the warehouse at all. Right? He was like, I'm not going there. I'll end up finding a new job. He was scared of the place because it bothered him. And the reason why was because the very last time he tried to block off that door, he actually nailed a board over it. And he had gone back to the front part. Like I said, it was divided into like 3 sections, and then there were some offices off on their own. But he went back up to the front warehouse to go work on something. I think he was palletizing something, and he was going to leave it there for a driver or whatever. And while he's working, he hears this big boom in the back of the warehouse. Scares the hell out of him. And when he pokes his head around the corner, that door is wide open and the wood was splintered everywhere. Now, of course, I wasn't there for that, and I heard this story, and I was like, man, that's bullshit. Okay, but thing was he was pretty adamant about not going in there, and eventually they negotiated down. They said, look, if you just go unlock it, flip the lights on in the morning, we'll send somebody, the drivers can load their own trucks. You don't have to go down if you really feel uncomfortable about it, to that point, because he'd worked for the company for a long time. They didn't want to lose him. So that's kind of the agreement that happened, and the drivers were pulling their own product and loading their own truck, or somebody else would go down there. I know my friend Scott, he went in there and he said, yeah, dude, that place is creepy. He's like, I don't believe stories. I haven't heard anything, but that place is definitely creepy, dude. It looks like a horror movie. So, this was about 4 months, and I hadn't even stepped foot in the warehouse yet. Meanwhile, December rolls around, and it's time to do inventory. And of course, no one wants to go in this place to go do inventory, and I don't care. Like I've spent tons of time in our warehouses completely alone by myself. Yeah, they're creepy or whatever, but I'm used to it. It's not ghosts. It's not goblins. It's not anything like that. It's just a big warehouse, and there's stupid noises, and these people are idiots, right? So December rolls around. They need to do counts out there. I'm frustrated because I've got other things I need to be doing with analytics and getting ready for bank audits and things like that. But the warehouse needs to be counted. So I get sent down there by myself. They give me keys to the place. They're like, okay, it's over here off of, well, I don't want to say it, Lancaster Road. But so I go down there, open the door up, and immediately I'm just kind of like creeped out by the place because it's everything they said it would be. Like the lights are off, you know, and I'm fumbling around in the dark or whatever. But I mean, it's no different than any other warehouse yet. So, but I walk across the main room, just kind of following the directions that Scott had actually given me. Find the breakers, flip on all the lights, whatever. First thing I notice is like only half the lights work. So I stay there a couple hours. I kind of get used to it. It's no big deal. But while I'm sitting there working, like I can hear like footsteps in the other room. And I keep kind of looking over my shoulder. I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird, whatever. But I realized that I've spent all my time in the front part of the warehouse. I haven't actually explored any of the other parts of the warehouse because I just kind of started in one section and was moving to the next section. So I said, okay, I'm going to take a break, and, either somebody's wandering around or there's like a window open that's kind of making these sounds, something like that, real logical thinking. Now I kind of go around the corner, counterclockwise. I see the other room. There's nothing real particular about it. But I get to the last room, and I see that door hanging wide open, the one everybody's been talking about. And of course, it's just pitch black in there. This room is just like a gaping maw, and it made the hairs on the back of my neck raise, just like, because it felt like something was looking out at me. Of course, I'm an idiot, so I walk up to it. I go and check it out, and there's this big chair that's over there that they've been sticking in front of the door to try to keep it closed or whatever. So I try the same thing. I'm kind of curious because I have heard the stories, and I'm like, okay, it's obviously. So I poke my head in the room and I look around, and it's a room. It's not sealed off from the outside totally. It's like sheet metal, so like in the corners or whatever, you can see little bits of daylight kind of peeking through. And so in my head, it's okay. Air pressure can build up. It can cause a draft. It can open this door. They're just not blocking it off, or they're full of crap. So there's like this little wood ramp that kind of goes in front of it. So I close the door and I jam the chair in between the ramp in the door, so that the only way this thing is going to blow open now is if somebody actually removes the chair somehow. And so I did that. I went into the other room. I didn't think anything about it, honestly. And I still kept hearing like footsteps and kind of like someone walking around the building, and it was really weird. And the door never broke open that day. But I just had this really uneasy feeling about it. And I got about halfway through that day, and after hearing all these footsteps, you heard someone like humming, like not like an adult, not like like kind of that higher register sort of thing, and it was creepy as hell. But I thought I was going nuts at first. Like, ghost wasn't the first thing that came to my mind. I thought it was like the sound of the ballasts trying to kick on, and it was hitting a certain frequency, things like that. But I had an iPhone S5 at the time. I mean, that was what was newer at the time. That's how long ago this was. Um, and so I kind of just, turned on the audio recorder and I recorded it. Um, Crazy enough, it came through on the recorder. Like it wasn't like the EVPs that we get a lot of times where we don't hear it at the time. Hi Sharon, how's it going? Where we don't hear it at the time. It was, I heard it. It was like somebody was standing there doing it, but I couldn't see them, and it picked up on my recorder. Um, it that didn't freak me out yet. That one didn't bother me. I thought it was interesting, and I just kind of tucked it away. I didn't do anything with it at the time. I went and looked for the footsteps. I never really found them that day, and at that point in the day. And so I really didn't think about it, um, and just kind of went on with what I was doing. So about an hour goes by, and actually everything kind of stopped for a little while. But as I'm sitting there, and I'm sorry, I'm trying. I get it out of order sometimes, but I've got it straight. So about an hour goes by. I haven't heard anything, and I've actually got like a live recording of the audio on my phone, which I just kind of tucked away, and I'm not really paying attention. I think I'm actually listening to music at the time, but over the music, I start uh, hearing that humming in the background again. And every time I go to look for it, the humming is gone. Like it goes away. And so I get to where I'm just ignoring it after a while. But as I'm sitting there and I'm working in that first room, I'm about halfway through the first room, I just hear this big boom, like, I mean, loud. But it's not what you're thinking. It's not from the door. It's from the back, like the back dock area, and it's like a slam, and it's so loud that I actually think it's a truck hitting that back metal dock. And so, even though it startled the hell out of me, my first thought was not that um, anything crazy was going on. It sounded like a truck had backed up. And I was like, okay, so, it startled me, whatever, I'm kind of doing my thing. I keep looking over, and I don't see anything. I don't see a driver come in. But then I hear that back door slant, which is the main entrance to the door. Hey, Callie, how's it going? And I hear the door just bam, slam. And I'm like, okay, the driver came in, but where the hell is he? And I can hear heavy boot steps just thumping around in the building, and it doesn't sound like the footsteps I heard before. It's like a heavy set person like myself, stomping around and wandering through the warehouse. And I think it's a driver. I think they've shown up and they want something loaded up, which I'm actually kind of aggravated because I wasn't told that I needed to do any of that. I was just there to count stuff and get the hell out of there. So the driver never comes over to me, and I'm a little curious, so I actually follow around where the sound's coming from, where I hear somebody walking around like they're looking for me, like they didn't see me when they walked in, which they should have. But I walk around the corner, and the first thing out of the corner of my eye as I'm turning the corner is that back door is wide open again, and that chair is about 2 or 3 feet away from where I put that chair. And I'm like, the driver moved it. I figured it out. There's a driver that's coming in, and he's screwing with the employees just to kind of get a rise out of them and get these stories going, because everybody knew about it by this time. So I still hear the footsteps off to the left going through the second to the third part of the warehouse, and I follow it in there. And as soon as I get into that other third around the other side of the wall, the footsteps just completely stop. And I'm like, where the hell is this guy? And I only have like 4 choices really of where he could go. There's a door that leads to like some offices to the right. Directly in front of me, there's a woman's room. There's an unmarked door, and then there's the men's room, and then there's a door further down. And so I'm like, okay, maybe he's just like jacking around. He's hiding in the offices. Maybe he's one of our newer drivers exploring, because a lot of us hadn't been in the building yet, and I hadn't even explored the whole thing myself. I just done like a quick lap and blocked off that door. So I head into the offices because I haven't been in there yet. And that was the least creepy thing about the whole experience, was walking through all these empty offices, and I never found anybody in there. But as I'm coming back out of the offices, it's separated by a door that's got glass in it. So as you're walking out of the offices, you can see out into the warehouse as you're walking. And so as I'm coming down that hall, I see the driver, but I don't see the driver standing there. What I see is one of those doors that's perpendicular to the office door is open and it's closing. And I see like the back shoulder of the guy, like the back arm and shoulder of the guy going into that room as the door's closing behind him. I'm like, okay, haha, gotcha. I know where you went. And it's that middle door between the two bathrooms. And like I said, I had only done a quick lap around the warehouse. I thought it was just like a break room. I thought maybe he was looking for a Coke machine, which shouldn't have been. Like, I don't know why I thought maybe there was a Coke machine or anything, but I just thought it was a break room. So I jump out of that main hallway real quick, out into that main landing area of the warehouse. I pop over to that door that I just saw close, open it up, and that's when things got really surreal, because as soon as I opened up that door, I realized that it was a 4-foot by 4-foot broom closet. And the only thing that was in this closet was a hot water heater, I guess, to supply hot water to the two bathrooms. There's nothing else in there. And I just saw somebody walk into this room. I was expecting to see like a break room, or at least a hallway going into a break room. And it's a room no bigger than like my desk with a hot water heater inside, and there's nobody in there. And like, I just got chills down my back when this happened, and I didn't know what to do. Like, it was something I was totally unprepared for. And I don't really know how long I stood there, but I just had my mouth open for like 2 or 3 minutes probably before I was just like, I'm going to lunch. Screw this, I'm going to lunch. And I just left the building. The thing was I was so just kind of like out of it at this point because of what just happened. I actually left my phone and my hat and my clipboard with my work on it inside on the pallet I was, initially doing counts on or whatever. So I went to, the only thing that was really around there was a Subway, or no, I'm sorry, it was a McDonald's. I went and sat at McDonald's, and, I get an hour lunch break. I took an hour, and then I took another hour because I didn't want to go back. Like, I was kind of worried about it. I was like, holy shit, this might be a thing. And, at lunchtime, I'm sitting there with my headphones, and I'm listening to the humming and the footsteps that I got on the recorder before. No, I take that back. That wasn't the time I did that, because I left my phone inside. That was a later time when I was sitting at McDonald's listening to that. Sorry. Like I said, I get, there's, memory is a fickle thing. Like, you kind of, every time you remember something, you're remembering the last time you recalled that data. So I'm actually getting that particular fact wrong. So I just sat at lunch for like 2 hours, and eventually I decided, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go back. And I can remember going up to the door, and I was real nervous about it. I really didn't want to go in, and it was freaking me out. But I needed my phone. I needed to finish what I was doing. I wanted my hat. So I open the door and I walk inside, and to this day I can't tell you what triggered in me, but as soon as I walked inside, the fear part kind of went away. The agitation, the anxiety, it all just kind of left all of a sudden. And I walked in. I didn't feel anything. Like, it didn't feel like anything was still there. I wasn't scared. Like I said, like, I can't logic it away. I don't know where that fear went, but I was fine. I went in, I picked up my phone, I picked up my hat, I got my work. I thought about maybe going home early for the day, and I was like, there's nothing really, nothing hurt me, even if something was here. Really, it's just kind of like, all of a sudden I got like interested in it. Like, and this all happened in the course of the same day. And I was like, okay, this is cool. So the funny thing is nothing the rest of that day happened. After I got back from lunch, there was no walking around, there was no humming. Um, the the door I just left open. I quit trying to even close that, so nothing ever happened with that again. Hi, Mita. Um, and so nothing else happened to me that day, and I just kind of had this overwhelming sense of, wow, that was weird. Did that even really happen? And so before I left that day, I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take pictures with my phone. It just seems like, the what you would do if you were investigating or something like this happened. And so I just went room to room to room, and I explored this whole place, and I must have took like 30, 40 pictures. And so about 4 o'clock, I button down, lock the place up, turn off the lights. And I go sit in my car, and I'm just kind of thumbing through these pictures on my phone. And I really actually wasn't expecting to find anything. Like, I was so flabbergasted by all of it, because like it was like the ninth or 10th picture in the set. I took a picture of the back room, and it's specifically the back room where the door kept opening up on its own. It's where I heard the heaviest amount of boot steps in there. It's also the second biggest part of the warehouse or whatever, but mainly it's the median area. And in the back part of the warehouse, near one of the fire, not the exit that we normally go out, but near one of the fire exits in front of some bookshelves, you could clearly see a full-bodied, um, but partially translucent figure just standing there by the back exit. And it looked like it was looking back on me. And it was startling. Like, it was so defined and so clear that even when I posted it, because I posted it to my Facebook account and showed it to my friends, the initial reaction was, "Oh, that is so horribly photoshopped." And like, the thing is if you knew me, yeah, I would have assumed that of me too. But I was 100% serious on this, and I was freaked out. And so I was going to these lengths to prove, no, this is a real picture. Like, I didn't delete it off of that phone for the longest time, so that to make sure everybody, look, this is the original one. It's on the phone. It's still in the roll. It's completely unedited, all that. But, I didn't know at the time to take duplicates and high-res pictures and things like that. So it was really crazy. And it was a really defining bit of evidence I got as an amateur that really sucked me in. And so I was just entranced with it, like, that night, and I actually I ran it through Photoshop, and I ran filters on it, negatives, spectrum analysis, things I knew to do, to what I would do to, like, defraud somebody else's picture. Of course, I had never done those procedures up to that point for this purpose, but I already had some of that media knowledge there, so I kind of did that to make it more legit. But I didn't know what to do with it, so it just kind of sat on my social media. It stayed on my phone for a long time. Um, some stuff on paranormal people do Photoshop, which is sad and not good for them. Yeah, I agree. I really hate people that try to pass me phony images. And in fact, recently I was doing some photo analysis for another investigator who he doesn't have the tools to do some of the same kind of, like, digital forensics that I do. And he sent it to me, and of course it was given to him by one of his clients, and he's like, "Hey, can you look at this and see what the legitimacy of it is?" And I felt really bad, because I had to say, "Hey, are you like really close with this person, or is this just a client or whatever?" Because it's totally bogus, and it wasn't photoshopped. What it is, and it may not have been that they were deliberately trying to fake it, but it was the reflection of a TV screen in like a glass door or whatever. Um, and so through that, and that, like, I know how to check those things through analysis now. And so that's something I know how to do in my investigations now. But at that point in time, I wasn't an investigator. I didn't know what to do with any of that info. I was just totally stoked by it, and um, it really piqued my interest. So the next day, the next morning when I went in, I wasn't scared anymore. I was actually excited because I wanted to prove that this stuff was actually going on. Because I didn't believe it at first until something had happened, right? And so the next day, before I even unlock the door or whatever, I can hear like a banging around inside, and I almost think there's like a hobo or something in there, a homeless person. And I open the door, and as soon as I open the door, the banging just stops. I'm like, okay, round two, we're doing this again. So I go in, I turn on the light, and I immediately hear uh, a banging in the back, like somebody working on a machine, just boom, 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 but rhythmic, like machinery or somebody working on machinery. So this time I pulled out all the stops. I said, screw it, and I ran video on my. That's what I had it. It's all I knew to do. So I ran video on my iPhone, and I walk through the warehouse, and you can hear the bangs on the video, and you can see there's nobody in the warehouse. And I film until the banging stops. And then I don't really know what to do at that point, so I kind of continue on with the video, and in the video I'm explaining what basically happened before, right? And as I'm kind of talking about that, there's quiet parts, and you can hear movement and stuff in there. And so that was the basis of our first NTParanormal video, was just that phone video. And of course, we did other official videos after that, because after I had that experience, we went and kind of started doing ghost hunting. I say ghost hunting, not investigating, because that's what we didn't know what we were doing. And we made other videos before that, and then I decided to eventually go back. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to take that footage from my iPhone. I'm going to try to make like a little episode out of it. And so I did, and like I said, there were inconsistencies in the video, which was really, it was really crazy. And for a long time, that was my definitive evidence. Now, after that was 2013, I didn't end up posting that video up until like 2015, 2016. I can't remember now. And that, in my head, that was my definitive evidence. Now, after all those years of getting better in doing legit investigations and in getting control over the way we do things, my thinking has changed on a lot of those events, which is really disappointing for a lot of people to hear, because I really wish I had access to that warehouse in some way, shape, or form, so I could go back, not to just like re-experience, but I think there's a lot of those things that happen to me there that actually have logical explanations. And now certain things don't. I did see a door close. I did see somebody walk into a broom closet, and then they weren't there. That happened. I didn't imagine that. That's something that happened. I did get sounds of like somebody humming and singing on my phone. But some of those things are things I think I can explain. I think a lot of the walking around, the humming sounds, some of that, I think of a lot of that was a warehouse next door that had connected air ducts, things like that, and the sound was traveling. It was basically sound contamination. I think that really iconic shot that I got in the back room, I think it's really convenient that I got all, I mean, the supporting evidence is that I had an experience, but I have a strong feeling that if I took a UV light in there and I reproduced that image from that exact same angle under different lighting conditions, you would find that there's possibly like water damage on the walls that creates the optical illusion of something there. Now, that's not to say that I didn't actually capture something. I mean, because I did have events that happened to me there that totally grabbed me and pulled me into it. But I think what a lot of people kind of gloss over is that you can have a combination of real world explainable things happening with a little bit of paranormal like sprinkled in, and it confuses the whole thing because a lot of investigators, they'll go in, they'll be like, okay, what paranormal thing's happening? And oh, I'm hearing footsteps, pipes bang, this that and the other, and they'll go in and they will, out of the 5 things that you mentioned, they'll find explanations for 3 or 4 of them, but not that last one. And they're like, well, four of those things were completely logical, so you're an idiot, and that 5th thing couldn't have possibly happened. But I don't necessarily think that's true. I mean, I I think you can live in a crappy house that makes lots of weird sounds and it also have paranormal activity. Um, and of course, you want to separate those things out and try to explain them one at a time, but both things can still happen. So I definitely had an experience that was out of the ordinary and doesn't have a run-of-the-mill explanation. But I think that experience may have got my imagination going to kind of, fuel that, oh, this is what this is, or this definitely has to be paranormal. So one of the things I wanted to do with this podcast is I wanted to see if I could do, where I could like reference a video or whatever. So I got my original video pulled up. Let's do this. So hopefully you can hear me and the sound on here. So what's going on in this section? So this is what I was talking about, where I went in the next day and immediately heard like some banging inside. So I went in, I turned on most of the lights. As you can see in the shot, only a certain amount of the lights in the building actually work. But you can hear like the banging sound in the back. The other thing you can hear is the humming of the ballasts. I never really got to test it with a real EMF detector because we didn't know what we were doing at the time. But I bet the EMFs were off the charts in this place because you could actually hear the ballasts going. So if you listen real close over the humming, you can hear like a banging sound in the back that I'm kind of chasing down. Now, where it says there that the EMFs are off the charts, at that point in time, I didn't know any better. I'm using a phone app to trace EMFs, which, in over the last 5 years, I've realized that phone apps don't actually read EMF. I was picking up magnetic frequency in there. So that's actually, so but I still speculate that the EMFs are off in there.
I'm at my Lancaster warehouse again. Seems like every time I come in here, I end up with some strange sounds.
Oh my God, I'm a kid.
And, one time I saw a door close on its own. As soon as I came in here, I heard a loud bang in the back. Sounded like there was somebody back here, maybe building a skid or working on something. So I ran back there real quick and double checked, and there was nobody there, but the bang stopped. So I turned on my recorder, started walking around, and I don't know if the audio picked it up on the phone, but there was definitely still some bang in the back. It'd be interesting to check that out later. Thought I'd go ahead and walk around and do some video.
So what I want to point out real quick is this door that I walk in front of that's got the glass on it right here. That's the one I was coming out of when I initially saw the door close in front of me. So I'd be walking towards the camera. And then if you look, let's see if I can do it. See this door here? That'd be the women's room. And then further to the left of that would be the broom closet door. And then further to the left of that would have been the men's room. Oh, the piano music, that was part of the intro from the original video. The ballast humming is just a bzzz, it's just a humming sound. You can hear it in the background as I'm
So I'll
talking.
go ahead and walk around and do some video.
So this is the actual break room. Oh yeah, and I actually caught some evidence while I was doing this.
I just heard a voice in the background behind me. It's pretty common to be in one room and then hear somebody say something in another room, but there be nobody here. This is the door I saw close on its own one time. I went by and it was closed just like this. And then when I was coming out of one of the offices, it was open like this. No, it was coming from this direction, and it looked like somebody had gone in this way. Right here, I saw like their shoulder, right here, and then the door just closed just like that. But it actually did that, and at the time I didn't know what was behind the door. And when I opened the door and looked in, this is what I saw.
So you can see there's like a hot water heater. Yeah, right there on the left.
I haven't seen that happen again since the...
Oh, that is another thing I want to note about my whole experience is that so like I saw something with my own eyes, like walking around, like I saw I guess what we're calling an apparition or whatever. But I never had that experience again. Everything besides that one moment that ever happened to me here was auditory, which those are the easiest things to explain away. Like the way sound travels through buildings, especially concrete, like you can see how big this area is. This would be what I was calling room 3. If you go further down there's a breakaway room in there, and then to the right of here would be the main warehouse. But that sounds could have come from anywhere in that place. But what I saw was what grabbed me. And the thing is I never saw anything in there again.
Oh, I just heard something in the back again, like a footstep or something.
So I actually, as I'm walking back, so this room I'm walking towards right here in the back that you see the light coming through, that's the room where I actually captured the picture of the apparition. And that's where I heard the heavy boot steps the day before. That's also where if you walk through this door that I'm pointing the cursor at and look directly left, that would be where that door is at that wouldn't stay closed, right? So I would kind of say that that's kind of the epicenter of where everything happened. And so I'll shut up here in a second and play the video. But if you watch and listen really close as I'm walking back towards that really active room, you're going to hear like a bumping around or something. And I actually react to it with the video because it sounds like it's right. Like what you don't get from watching the video is it sounds like it's right in front of me. Like just not like it's in the next room, but like it sounds like there's like a cat jumped on the pallet that's right in front of me or something, but then it's on the other side. But I'm videotaping this whole time I'm walking. So I'm going to shut up and I'll hit play. Y'all can kind of...
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of people seeing a shadow walk by across here.
I play through it again. Just listen real close. So I mean, that's pretty cool because like when I was making this video, like I had started trying to capture evidence, and then I didn't know what to do, so I was just kind of talking through my experience, kind of like I am now. And then, of course, I got like that banging, and I hadn't watched this video in a while. I forgot about the light singing sound in the background, which I think at the end of this video, I actually just stuck all the audio I originally got in there. Um, and it's much more prominent. But I always thought that was really cool that I just kind of captured that with this phone. Of course, I do a little bit of debunking too, like because there's this grate here that I kind of step on, and it sounds like a footstep, which could have been some of that banging sound. Also, the place wasn't insulated real well, uh, so the humming sounds and the singing sounds really could have been wind coming through these windows or up through some of these air ducts and things like that. That's why I really feel like if I went back today with the experience I have now, there would be a lot of it that I could actually debunk or kind of go through and have more solid explanations for. Or at the very least, I would have things that I would want to check. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't been watching the chat. Hey, Donald, how's it going? Hey, Remick. The backstory on this, that's basically what we've been talking about the whole episode. This was the first paranormal experience that I had. And I mean, you can kind of go back through everything we talked about. You know, I kind of told the whole story, and now we're just kind of I'm basically kind of setting the record straight on this video because there's inconsistencies in the video with my story because at the time I made this video, I wasn't, and I don't even want to say I'm good now, but I wasn't good at editing. I wasn't good at documenting my evidence in a very meticulous way so I could go back and make sure all my facts were straight. So I'm kind of clearing up explaining some of the inconsistencies in what this video says and what actually happened. So yeah, I kind of walked through there. I want to see if it'll, of course that would be back to the main room, and then it should pan to the left as I walk in here.
I can't get to it right now. That room right there.
Yeah, it's not real good in this video. We actually ended up filling up this room with product like the next day. So it's something they did overnight. This would be the one shipping dock we've got. There's only the 3 doors. It's the only way in or out. That would be the door that I thought I heard slam.
The video's picking it up, but you can hear the electricity running through these. My baseline EMF is really high, so that makes a good case for saying, you know, a spirit.
So once again, I'm using a phone app to test the EMF, which is something I absolutely just rail on. Not beginners, because I was a beginner too. Beginners don't know any better. But that's something I absolutely just like rail on experienced investigators for doing, because they should know better. And that's one of the things that I got in a big argument about, was whether or not it was actually detecting EMF or if it was detecting geomagnetic waves, which it detects geomagnetic waves. I got a whole article on that if you want to read that. But that was basically my walkthrough. Let me see if it's got the audio.
Spirit could potentially be active in here because it's got plenty of energy.
And this would be the main room where I kept hearing everything in the other rooms. Like I would be over in this area and count.
But you know, just walk through.
Oh, okay. So me being an amateur editor at the time, I just decided to put the noises at the end, or the original audio and the picture. So I'll just let it run for you guys because there's not that much left on it.
All right. Well, I haven't heard anything in about 5 minutes, and I got work to do, so I'm gonna get back to work. I'm at our Lancaster warehouse. I just walked in and I can hear bang in the background. There was just some banging on the wall in the back.
So I'll pause it here for just a quick second. So if you notice, like all the pictures, the rooms are emptier. Try something real quick. I don't know if I can do this or not. Oh, that's awesome, isn't it? So, like, if you notice the pictures, they the rooms are emptier, and it's because I took pictures on that first day before they filled up the rooms, right? So this picture that we're looking at right here, this is the door that I was talking about that burst open all the time, and then this is the back exit that I was talking about, where here pretty soon I actually get a still shot of that apparition, but I think it's all about angle and lighting and things like that. But this is the main room that had most of the activity. And actually, after we filled it up with all that product, that's when we stopped having as much activity. So what that kind of tells me is that the auditory sort of activity that we had probably had a lot to do with that being a big open space and sound just bouncing, all around, the way sound just works unpredictably sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to shut up for a minute because I want y'all to really listen to this next like little loop of recording. But this is where you can hear it sounds like a little kid singing, and I'm the only person in the warehouse. Now, like I said before, it could be the wind, it could be a million other things, but just listen to it and tell me it doesn't just creep you out. But it's really, really prominent. So I'm hoping that's really audible over this kind of setup. Sorry if it's not. You can always go back to the video and listen to it with headphones. And then, this is how I chose to end that. This is the picture I took. And of course I could probably bring up the picture better, but I'm just gonna use the one in the video. So this would be like the full shot, and then of course right in here, you know, for dramatic effect in the video, I zoom in on it. But this was the first like paranormal picture that I ever took, and like I said, this could easily be some kind of optical illusion from like staining. It could be a watermark on, you know, the adjoining walls that gives the appearance of a 3D image, but that is it's a pretty stark image. It's, to me, it was startling at the time. Of course, I took it on an iPhone 5, so that's not real reliable. I didn't take duplicates. I don't have negatives, so it's not something that I ever actually present as evidence anymore. It's just something that means a lot to me. Is, hey, this is the thing that kind of got me into it. Still, though, I mean, but it's so clear, you know, like I couldn't even be, I couldn't be mad at anybody for saying, hey, that looks photoshopped, you know, because it does. It's just, it's that clear. And I never ever expected that we would get a shot that clear again. A lot of the team members are like, oh, that's the best shot in our collection. I don't think it is. I think we've gotten more definitive evidence since then on other cases, but that's kind of the one that we always go back to, just because it was so startling. It was so unexpected, and it drew you in. But scientifically, I can barely call it evidence. It's definitely not proof. You know, the sound recordings I took, is awesome as they sound. There's no way I can prove to you guys that I didn't fake it, right? The videos, there's no way I could prove that, you know, I don't have somebody hiding out making banging noises or anything like that. I did not know what I was doing at the time. So at this point, that is just something that is dear to me and kind of dear to our group. Our, you know, it's just something for us. And so now it falls under that category of personal experience. I mean, even though it's on video, even though it's on audio, and I took digital pictures, it's not evidence. It's just personal experience. And of course, you know, if you know anything about our group, our saying is always, personal experience is absolutely valid. It's just not evidence. So, but anyway, I wanted to go ahead and do this podcast kind of as an experiment, see if I could, you know, bring up videos and do pictures and stuff like that. And looking at the comments, it sounds like everything worked out good. And, you know, I just kind of wanted to clear up some of the inconsistencies about that story, kind of go into detail. I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you did, the written account of it is probably a hell of a lot better than my mumbling through it and stopping and starting and all that. If you haven't picked it up, you should really pick up our book, After Dark Paranormal Investigations, available on Amazon. This story is in it, as well as 3 other of my team members wrote the stories that got them into paranormal investigation. And then it's got accounts of 7 of our other cases in it, all varying degrees of evidence versus proof versus debunking, and it's kind of a book about our evolution as paranormal investigators and how we do things. And of course the whole first part of it is me rambling on about the science behind it, so that you can actually understand things. Like, I actually talk about the formulas on how sound frequencies are actually calculate, you know, and how we separate out certain EVPs. So there's a lot of good technical information in there. There's a lot of good stories about our experiences, and then there's a lot of good information in there about the actual cases that we've done. So I'm a little biased to it since, you know, I wrote the majority of it. My team helped me with it too. Kristen Martindale wrote a chapter in there. Sarah Hatfield wrote a chapter, and Allie Bolton Lynn did her accounts to it as well. And I don't know any other books that are out there like it, where it's just a real honest account of paranormal things, and it doesn't try to convince you one way or the other. It just presents the facts, and it presents the experiences, and lets you kind of decide for yourself. So if you liked this particular podcast, the story, just me talking about my experience, then that's definitely a book for you. And I definitely suggest tuning into some of our other podcasts, because I plan to, most of the time I talk about like the science of things, or we're just goofing off, but I'm going to try to get the rest of the group to kind of, on the times when they're on, to talk about their personal stories as well, and then we can kind of talk about the cases, and hopefully I can get some guests on and stuff like that too. So that's kind of the plan for the future. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed everything, and you know, be sure to check us out. Websites right here. If you liked the video I was showing, you can check out all the videos from that website. It links to our YouTube channel. Of course, we've got videos here on Facebook, and you know, we've got more stories. We write articles, all kinds of good stuff. So just check us out. Hope everybody has a good night. Later.